I was 19 years old when my world changed forever. My name is Isabel Navarro, and today, at 40, I carry a story that transformed me in ways I never imagined. I was raised in a small town in Mexico, where faith was the foundation of everything. My father, a man of strict rules, saw religion as a way to maintain order, and my mother, with her gentle voice, taught me to pray with my heart. From a young age, I believed that God was love, that life had a greater purpose. But that belief was tested when my father, fearing my restlessness, decided my place was in a convent. He said that there I would find holiness, that my independence was a threat. So, on a gray day, I crossed the gates of the convent of St. Mary of Redemption, leaving behind everything I knew. The stone walls rose like sentinels, and the tall windows seemed like eyes that never blinked. I handed over my belongings, my identity, believing it was the first step to drawing closer to God. Silence was the rule. We spoke only with permission, and the day was a rigid sequence of prayers, manual labor, and penances. Mother Superior Josefina ruled with an iron hand and a gaze that pierced the soul. She said obedience was the path to salvation, and I wanted to believe her. In the first months, I immersed myself in the routine, trying to find peace in renunciation. But something inside me stirred. There was an emptiness I couldn't explain, a feeling that instead of lifting me up, those walls were suffocating me. I began to notice strange things. The fear in the sisters' eyes, the heavy silences, the absences no one accounted for. One night, in the chapel, I saw a sister trembling in a dark corner. I tried to approach her, but she fled before I could speak. That was the first sign that something was wrong. Then I met Clara. She was a young novice with eyes that seemed to search for a way out. We worked together in the library, and there, among dusty books, she whispered something that chilled me. "Isabel, this place isn't what you think." Before I could ask more, the Mother Superior entered, and Clara fell silent. Her words echoed in me. What did she mean? My faith, which had always been my anchor, began to waver. If this was God's path, why did I see so much fear? One night, I heard a muffled sound from the cell next door. I pressed my ear to the wall and listened. Lord, get me out of here. My heart raced. Whose voice was that? Why was it so desperate? In the days that followed, I wrestled with my doubts. I wanted to believe the convent was a refuge, but the signs piled up. Whispers in the dark, furtive glances, attention no one named. Everything changed when Clara disappeared. One morning, her place in the chapel was empty. I asked a sister where she was, but she lowered her eyes, frightened. Another replied in a whisper, "Don't ask." Then the Mother Superior appeared, her voice cutting. Clara was transferred. No more questions. But I knew it was a lie. No one spoke of her, as if she'd never existed. My restlessness grew, and the Mother Superior noticed. She summoned me to her office, an austere room with a crucifix on the wall and an open Bible. "Sister Isabel," she said, not looking at me, "obedience is your mission. Set distractions aside." I left with a knot in my throat, knowing I needed answers. I met Rosa in the pantry, a reserved novice with the same fear I'd seen in Clara. Risking everything, I asked, "Do you know what happened to Clara?" She hesitated, then whispered, "Clara wanted to leave, and those who want to leave disappear." My body went cold. "Where did they take her?" "I don't know," Rosa replied, "but no one comes back." The conversation was cut short by another sister, but those words haunted me. The convent wasn't a home of faith. It was a prison disguised as sanctity. I began to see the punishments. Sisters forced to fast for days, others locked in dark cells for minor mistakes. I myself was punished once, made to pray on my knees for hours until my bones ached. In that moment, I asked myself, if God is love, why are we taught to fear him? One night, I heard hurried footsteps in the corridor. Through the crack in my door, I saw two sisters dragging something wrapped in a blanket. My heart pounded, but fear paralyzed me. What was that? The next morning, I decided I had to uncover the truth. I feigned obedience, lowering my eyes before the Mother Superior, but began exploring the convent's forgotten corners. It was in the attic that I found a leather diary with the initials MC etched on it. It belonged to Maria Castillo, a former sister. Her words cut me. I thought this place was holiness, but it's a cage. Those who try to escape are punished or disappear. I tried to flee, but they caught me. If anyone reads this, don't stay silent. My chest tightened. This wasn't new. It was a cycle of terror spanning years. I hid the diary under my habit and returned to the attic at night. Among old papers, I found a broken rosary, Clara's. Certainty hit me. She hadn't been transferred. She was somewhere, or worse. Fear gripped me, but so did determination. I couldn't ignore it. In the chapel, I sought Rosa and showed her the rosary. "Where did you find this?" she asked, pale. "In the attic," I replied. "She didn't leave, Rosa." Her eyes filled with tears. "Don't go on, Isabel. They'll get you." But I knew stopping wasn't an option anymore. That night, I decided to act. Clara's rosary burned in my hands like a reminder of what was at stake. As the convent's lights dimmed, I wrapped myself in a blanket and slipped through the dark corridors. Every shadow seemed alive. Every creak of the wood under my feet echoed like a scream. I knew I needed proof, something to reveal the fate of the missing sisters. My plan was risky: descend to the crypts, a forbidden place the sisters avoided even mentioning. Rosa had warned me of rumors about hidden cells down there, but I needed to see for myself. I found a door ajar at the end of a forgotten hallway. Holding my breath, I descended the stone steps, the air growing colder and damper with each step. At the bottom, the smell of mildew enveloped me. There were small cells, rusted bars, and crumbs of dry bread on the floor. My stomach churned when I saw a folded habit in one of them, a simple rosary atop it. It was Clara's. Before I could process it, a voice sliced through the silence. "Sister Isabel, what are you doing here?" It was Mother Superior Josefina. Her tone was pure ice. I tried to speak, but she grabbed my arm and dragged me back. "Curiosity is a sin," she said, locking me in my cell. The key turned with a sound that reverberated in my bones. I spent the night in darkness, the cold wrapping around me like a living punishment. My body trembled, but my mind screamed, Clara hadn't left that place. And I'd be next if I didn't do something. Desperation consumed me. Hours dragged on, or maybe days. I lost track of time. Without water or food, my throat burned and my knees ached from leaning on the stone. I thought about giving up. My faith, once my strength, felt like a distant echo. "God, where are you?" I whispered, tears falling. Then, in the silence, I felt something. It wasn't a voice, but a presence, a warmth that calmed my chest. It was as if God said, "You're not alone." In that moment, I decided I had to escape, not just for myself, but for Clara, for Maria Castillo, for all those the convent had silenced. My chance came when the cell door opened. It wasn't the Mother Superior, but Rosa. Her face was pale, but her eyes shone with urgency. "Isabel, we have to go now," she whispered. "How did you manage?" I asked, stunned. "I took the keys from the laundry," she replied, pulling me along. We ran through the corridors, hearts in our throats. We reached a back door, and Rosa tested the keys. The third one worked. The cool night air hit us as we stepped outside. We ran across the courtyard, barefoot on the wet ground, to a tree by the wall. We climbed, helping each other, and jumped to the other side. The impact made me groan, but we didn't stop. We ran until dawn, until exhaustion brought us down outside the city. The sun was rising when we stopped. Rosa fell to her knees, panting. I dropped beside her, feeling freedom for the first time in years. "What now?" she asked, her voice faint. I remembered a Christian family my mother had visited in my childhood in a nearby village. "I know a place," I said, taking her hand. We walked, hungry and wounded, to a small town of narrow streets. I knocked on the door of a modest house. A middle-aged woman opened it, surprised. "My name is Isabel," I said hesitantly. "My mother, Teresa, came here years ago." Her eyes lit up. "Teresa's daughter? My God!" She hugged us, brought us inside, and gave us bread and water. I cried learning my mother had died, but my father still lived. The woman guided us to him. My father opened the door, eyes wide. "Isabel?" His voice broke. We embraced, tears dissolving years of distance. "I looked for you," he said. I never gave up. We sat in his simple living room, the smell of coffee enveloping us. Rosa and I shared pieces of our story, and he listened in silence. "You're here now," he said, holding my hand. "It's a new beginning." In the days that followed, we adjusted to life in the village. Fear still woke me at night, echoes of the convent in my mind, but my father's and Rosa's presence anchored me. I began helping in his carpentry shop, feeling the wood under my fingers as an act of healing. Rosa cooked with the woman who'd taken us in, and slowly, smiles returned to her face. One day, my father took me to the village church. It was different from the convent. Open windows, sunlight, joyful voices. The pastor spoke of grace, of a God who waits with love, not punishment. I cried, but from relief. For the first time, I felt faith as freedom, not a prison. Rosa and I found a home there, among people who welcomed us without questions. But something in me wouldn't rest. I knew others still suffered in the convent. One night I confessed to Rosa, "I can't forget those we left behind." She nodded, her eyes steady. "We have to speak," she said. We started at the church. We told our story, the fear, the disappearances, the escape. We feared judgment, but found support. The pastor connected us to other communities, and our voice grew. Women sought us out, sharing similar experiences. A young woman, trembling, said, "I escaped a place like that too." I understood our pain had a purpose. Months passed, and our story echoed beyond the village. We became a beacon for the silenced, helping them find healing. One day, by a riverbank, Rosa asked, "Can we forget?" "No," I replied, "but we can remember with gratitude." She smiled, and we knew God was guiding us. That year, we decided to be baptized. In a packed church, the pastor spoke of redemption. The cold water washed away my past, and the applause wrapped around me like an embrace. Rosa hugged me, and we cried with joy. Later, under the stars, she said, "All this had a reason." "Yes," I replied. "Thank you for not giving up." We prayed together, giving thanks for being free, for being called to something greater. Our journey wasn't over. There was more to do, more lives to touch. The breeze blew, and the future, for the first time, felt like a gift.